Madam Giovanna, who's a PhD student in the postgraduate program in physical education, associated with the State University of Maringa and State University of Londrina in the line of practices, policies, and knowledge production. Master by the same program, 2018, participates in research and study group, JEPOL, Study and Research Group on Public Sports and Leisure Policies at the UM, and teaches at Inga University Center, Iringa, conducts research on team sports, especially rugby, public policies, and gender. On behalf of the Ministry of Youth, Affairs and Sports, Government of India, Khelo India, a warm welcome to our dignified speaker, not only a speaker, a great athlete, an outstanding sports person, a great academician, and a person who understands the policies and law. Indeed, we are very fortunate, blessed to have a person with this mixed personality for our session. And over and above, a very young and budding professional whom everybody are looking forward to, the future of the world for PE and sports. So a warm welcome to you, madam, on behalf of the Ministry of Youth, Affairs and Sports, Government of India, Khelo India, and Lakshibai National College of Physical Education. We welcome you to the session. I also welcome Madam Beatrice, who is a vice president, passed away, and again a great anthropologist, close friend of a ministry, not a ministry, of our side family. Ma'am, a warm welcome to you. I'd like to welcome Madam Claudia from Mexico. Madam, a warm welcome to again a budding, I would say budding, and the young academician whom we all look forward to, because you are the future in terms of sport and the profession. I'd like to welcome the Vice President of XP, the light of this program, Madam Darlene, because without you, I find we miss a lot. A great mentor, philosopher, a guide, and this whole thing which rests. And I owe so much to Darlene, which none of you would know of it. I am able to be so good today is because of you. So ma'am, a warm welcome to you. I also like to welcome our principal, Dr. G. Kishore. He's not only the principal, he's also the regional director. And I'd like to welcome Dr. Sanjeev Patil, all my dear PE teachers and coaches, because I always believe that you're the heart and soul of this program. I know in spite of the tireless work that you have, you make it a point of being with us. So warm welcome to one and all. Aap sabka swagat hai. Once again, Madam Benvinda to all my young girls. Yeah, girls and boys, I'm sorry, because you're PE teachers also. Benvinda is welcome. I'm learning Portuguese. So over to you, ma'am. Giovanna, for the session, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Giovanna, as Dr. Isha said. So today I'm talking a little bit about public policies in Brazil. And the last time that I came to talk with you, everybody asked a little bit about rugby. So I brought a few information about how you can introduce rugby to your kids, if you're a teacher, a school teacher, and if you work with girls and boys at the same time. So I brought a few informations that I will talk at the end of my speech. Okay?
Okay. Could I just say, आप सबके लिए मैं खबर देना, information देना चाहती हूँ. Giovanna मैडम पढ़ाती भी है, साथ में खिलाड़ी है, रग्बी की खिलाड़ी है. वो ब्राजील को अगला वर्ल्ड कप में प्रेजेंट करने के लिए, इसलिए बहुत अच्छा इनका यूट्यूब में भी देखेंगे, इनका ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम है. मैडम ट्रेन करती हैं, साथ में एकेडमिक्स का भी मिक्स है. मैडम रग्बी की प्लेयर है, और साथ में जो रिसर्च पॉलिसीज में, रिसर्च में भी उन्होंने काफी काम किया है. तो हम लोग बहुत भाग्यशाली, जैसे मैडम को हम मिल चुके हैं. तो मैडम बताएगी मैडम की जो जर्नी है, किस तरह से वो एक्सेलेंस पे गई है, कितना मुश्किल और मेहनत है इस लेवल तक पहुंचने का. तो मैडम अपना स्लाइड बाद में दिखाएंगी, लेकिन आप सबको कुछ भी क्वेश्चन है आप उसको चैट बॉक्स में बाद में डालिएगा. थैंक यू.
Okay, that was so nice.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see.
You want to share the screen?
Yes.
Ranish?
Okay. Let me see what I can do here. Just 1 second. I think it's this one. So are you seeing my screen?
Yes. Pranish, is this okay? It's double. Pranish. We can see
Is it double?
there's two
Two
screens.
screen? Okay, let me see what I did here.
Yes. Third conference. Okay. Yes.
Okay. So which screen are you guys seeing?
No, now it's a video of yours. You're showing an objective. You're putting a YouTube video.
Yeah, that's later if you have time.
Fine.
So I'm just trying to. Okay, let me see something. I'm trying to change the screen. Okay, stop share. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Good.
Okay. So I'm just I know that Dr. Isha said a little bit about myself. So I'm saying just a little bit more informations and telling you about exactly where I live. So I'm from Brazil and I live in this small city called Maringá. I live in South Brazil, but it's still a very warm city and the weather is great here. And as said before, I'm a member of IAPESGABI and JEPOL. Both I'm studying for girls and women's in sports. I'm a PhD student and I'm also an athlete of the Brazilian team. So I'm looking forward to the World Cup that's going to be held in England this year. So I'm really excited about it. So as I said before,
could I just speak? आप मेरे को लगता है कि आपने सुना होगा मैडम जैसे बता रही थी कि मैडम ब्राजील में कहाँ रहती है मरिंगा और मैडम पीएचडी का जो स्कॉलर है उसके अलावा मैडम अपना दो ग्रुप की मेंबर भी पैस्कबे और जेपॉल की मेंबर भी रह चुकी है मेंबर है और साथ ही साथ मैडम एथलीट है मैडम इस साल जो वर्ल्ड कप में वो ब्राजील से भाग लेने में इंग्लैंड में होने वाला है वर्ल्ड कप उसकी मेंबर की तैयारी कर रही है जिससे मैडम का ट्रेनिंग मैडम उसके बारे में जानकारी दिया यस मैम थैंक्स
okay. So as I said before, I'll try to bring information about sport policies in Brazil because sometimes I think that when people look at Brazil, they think that it's a very disconstructed country. So everything is great about women in sports here. And I'll show you all that it's not everything perfect here. And then later I'll talk a little bit about tag rugby. That's how you play rugby without contact, physical contact. So maybe you can use in the places that you work. Okay. So we know that as soon as women started playing sports, there were a lot of barriers. And in the last few years or decades, there was an increase of women's participation in sports. And that happened because of the creation of public policies that helped women to access different kind of sports and to be part of this area. So there are a few public policies, for example, in Norway, in Australia, and in USA, that helped girls to be involved with sports. So, for example, in Norway, we had in the national sports organizations, you have to have two representatives of each sex. So I have to have two boys, two women, and two men. So things can get equal in the discussions about esports. In Australia, it was something really close to Norway. So if I have a man as a president in the national sports organization, I have to have a woman as a woman as a vice president, and vice versa. If I have a woman as a president, I had to have a man as a as a vice president, sorry. And in the USA, one of the famous public policies that we know is the Title IX in the Amateur Sports Act, that says about combating discrimination against women and their exclusion in from educational programs financed, I think this is the word in English, by the government. So when we say about Brazil, what public policies that we had here, that was the main policies about sports? It was the national conferences and the I always had a hard time trying to say this word, legislation of sports. And so I'm talking about those two policies, and then trying to bring this to a general context and telling what we can do concerning those policies. So the national conferences, okay, just hold on a second. Okay, they were organized by the sport ministry in 2003. So the sport ministry were created here in Brazil in 2003. Now it doesn't exist as a specific ministry. You know, it's now divided with a lot of other things like culture and education, for example. But in this time, we had in a specific ministry for sports. So with the creation of this sport ministry, people started to discuss and doing research about sports here in Brazil. And thinking about those discussions, the government created the National Sports Conferences that were held in 2004, 2006, and 2010. The main purpose of, the main purpose of the National Sport Conferences was to bring people closer, so to have social participation, so people could talk about what they think it would be better for the country, considering the sports, talking about their problems, talking about their ideas. So in the first conference that it was held in 2004, the theme was sport, leisure, and human development. There were only 24% of participation that were women. The other 26% were men. So the topics that talked about women in this conference, that the things that were discussed about women's sports in Brazil, were reduced to female soccer development. So you may know that, I know here in Brazil, we all say that Brazil is the country of soccer. But when we think about country of soccer, we are not thinking about female soccer. We are thinking about men's soccer. So in regards this, we know that people practice, people buy things about sport like balls, jerseys, and buy tickets. So when we say country of soccer, we are talking about men's soccer. But here, this is why maybe soccer was the sport that was discussed in this first conference. About female soccer, they discussed about training, promotion of competitions, and inclusion of soccer in championships, and talking about like base categories in local, state, and federal level. And they also created a specific department for women in federations and confederations. So we have like CBF, CFB, it's Brazilian Confederation of Soccer. In Brazil, we say football, but it's soccer. And then they created a specific department in this confederation to discuss about women's soccer. But they didn't discuss about how to get girls to play soccer or how to make more girls involved with this. They only discussed about the creation and the organization of championships and the creation of a center of excellence. So they only discussed about elite athletes and not about girls, young girls, and people who just want to practice this sport. So the thing that I was thinking, that I always think, is that if soccer is a very popular sport in Brazil and women's soccer didn't have visibility, they only discussed about a few things, what others, how could other sports should be discussed? I mean, for example, rugby that I play, or even volleyball, basketball, or so many other sports that we have, they were even discussed in this first conference. The other thing that it was interesting in this first conference was that in the final document of this conference, it also makes reference to women, focusing on construction and reform of spaces for sports, as well as their accessibility, as can be seen in this section. So it was said that to ensure the use of buildings in public schools and universities, taking into account the accessibility and adaptability of disabled and elderly people and mothers for whom the practice of sport and leisure demands a parallel structure of care for their children. So what we see here, we have women included here, but as a mothers. So this is a reduced, how can I say this? A reduced vision of how women should be. We call it a maternalist policy because it reduces women's function to the maternal role. So we are not women, we are mothers. So this is about the first conference. The second conference, the theme was building the national sports and leisure system. And here we had a little bit more women participating, so 31%. And the only topic that the people talked about in this conference that could be related to women was this is what I'm going to read. The guarantee of access to sports and leisure practice in all its dimension, in particular the disabled, people with special needs, and others, regardless gender and ethnicity. So we see that women can be included when they talk about gender here. On the third conference, the theme was the decennial plan for sport and leisure, and here we have 32% of participation of women. So we have 24 on the first one, 31 on the second one, and 30% of participation on women. So we have an increase of participation of women in those conferences. So here, the main thing that was discussed was about sport as a tool of a social change, enabling economic and social development and respected gender, racial, and cultural diversity. So what we see is that the final resolution of this conference was based on human rights. So women appears here in a generalized way. So when they talked about exclusion and social vulnerability, about sports and leisure being a social right, so men, women, children, elderly people, people with disabilities, so everyone should get access to sports, and the attention to reversal the current frames of injustice. So we know that women's they face a lot of barriers, so they don't get the same access to sport as men, so they try to like fix this injustice, so women's appear here in a generalized way. uh, so what we see, despite of the absence of an explicit discourse on women's participation in the resolution and in the conference, we see that there were a little concern about the relationship between gender and sports and women and sport. It was not specific only on the first conference, but we had a few things that we can relate to women in this three conferences. So about the Brazilian legislation, we had five main laws in Brazil. So it was the decree law and a few laws that we'll see, for example, Zico law and Pelé law. You probably know those names. And I'll talk a little bit about those five, sorry, legislation and how we can relate those legislation with women in sports. So when the decree law 3199 was the first law about sports in Brazil. In the time that it was created, we call it a Estado Novo, like new state in English, and it was a dictatorial period here in Brazil. So the government and the states, they tried to control people in so many different ways. So they tried to control people's action. They tried to impose a nationalist feeling. So everyone should love Brazil. Brazilian people should love Brazil. They tried to insert Brazil in the international scenario, in economic relations and social relations. So they thought, how could we do this? And they thought, okay, maybe we should use the sport to do this. So they created this decree law in 1941. And in this decree law, on the Article 54, it was said that women will not be allowed to practice sports that are incompatible with the conditions of their nature. And for this purpose, the National Sports Council must issue the necessary instruction to the sports entry of the country. So what we see here, when the article said about their nature, they are saying that the nature of woman and of women is should be mother, it should be to take care of their children. So they could not practice any sport that could I forgot the word in English, but anything that would make that impossible to be a mother, impossible to raise their kids, they shouldn't practice. So here what we say, this was said especially about medical discourses. So about the myth of women's fragility. So women's could not play contact sports, they were fragile, they could break themselves, that was not a possible thing for women to do. So they just should be at home, taking care of the house and of their kids. So after a few years,
Can you just tell me the Giona? Could you just go to the previous slide, please? Could I just translate and tell them?
Yeah, sure.
मैडम ये जो बता रही थी, इस लॉ में जो डिक्री लॉ है 3.199 में, इसमें बताया कि ये लॉ में कि जो स्त्रियां होती है वो लोग को ज्यादा एक्टिविटी वगैरह भाग नहीं होना चाहिए, उनको बनाया इसलिए नहीं है, वो तो घर पे रहना चाहिए, ऐसा करके पहले लॉ था। ये बता रहे कि कैसा लॉ बदला हुआ, ये लॉ पे जब हुआ था तो बोला कि फिजियोलॉजिकली लेडीज अनसूटेड है, जो मेडिकल रीजंस होंगे उनका तो मेनली चाइल्ड बेयरिंग, ऐसे बच्चे को इसलिए उनका जो फिजियोलॉजी ऐसा है कि उनको फिजिकल एक्टिविटी में ज्यादा भाग नहीं लेना चाहिए। इस तरह से एक लॉ बना गया और जो आदमी लोग है वो उन लोगों से ज्यादा सुपीरियर है। इस तरह का कल्चर ये वाला लॉ बता रहा था इस लॉ के बारे में। दैट मीन्स उसमें बोला कि स्त्रियां फिजिकल एक्टिविटी में भाग नहीं लेना चाहिए। तो ये इसके बारे में ये इस लॉ का है जो आपको समझाई। ओके मैम, थैंक्स।
Okay. So a few years later, in 1965, it was created the resolution number 7, and it said a little bit more things, a little bit more, yeah, a few things more about women's sport. So at this time, the article 1 said women will be allowed to practice sports in modalities and conditions established by the international bodies responsible for each sport, including competitions subjects to the provision of this resolution. So what were allowed in this at this time? Running, cycling, walking, and tennis. And something that we see now in 2015 or 2020, we see that the most practiced sports in Brazil for girls is still running, walking, and cycling. So we see that something that happened a lot of years ago and decades ago, it still have an impact in what we see today. Okay. So
ma'am, could you just go to the previous one? I could just explain that. Thanks ma'am. तो ये जो रेजोल्यूशन, जो 7वीं रेजोल्यूशन में इन्होंने बोला कि जो स्त्रियां हैं उनको हम खेल में भाग लेने देंगे, लेकिन जो इंटरनेशनल बॉडी में उसमें बोला कि रनिंग हुआ, दौड़ हुआ, वॉकिंग हुआ, साइकिलिंग, टेनिस, ये चारों जो गेम है इसमें करेंगे करके वो 7वां रेजोल्यूशन में आया। इसे देखे कि विमेन का जो परसेंटेज था वो धीरे से बढ़ गया सिर्फ ये इवेंट्स में। और उन्होंने बोला कि जो पहले जिसकी शुरुआत थी, आजकल भी देखा गया कि रनिंग, वॉकिंग, साइकिलिंग में ही सारे ज्यादातर लेडीज भाग भी, जो स्त्रियां हैं और या जो गर्ल्स हैं वो इस पे ज्यादा भाग ले रही हैं। थैंक्स मैम।
Okay. So the second article said that women are not allowed to do any kind of martial arts due to their nature, the nature that I said before about the biological, about their body. They couldn't get hurt, and or play football, indoor soccer, beach soccer, water polo, rugby, baseball, or weightlifting. So what we said at the first time that decree law was created in 1941, they couldn't play anything. So what have changed? So they allowed a few things and not allowed other things. The thing that is what we should focus here is about the medical discourses. So doctors said about that to be a mother, you have to be a healthy woman. So to be a healthy woman, I had to practice sports. So if I am a healthy woman, I will have healthy children to fight for the country. So that was the only reason that women were allowed to play sports. So and if they could play sports, regards this one that I told you about, they had a special condition to participate. So for example, I had to have a specific age and a sufficient number of practice to a specific number of players, and I have to have an authorization for practice. So it wasn't like a free thing that I could do anytime or any place and whatever I want. No, I have this specific conditions. And there's another thing that it was interesting. Another decree law kind of reinforced these things about the healthy woman and about not playing sports. So there was a paragraph that talked like this: women will give special awareness of the duties that bind them to the home, and as well the taste of domestic service, especially those related to the upbringing and education of children. So here we are again reduced to the role of being mothers and taking care of our kids.
Speak.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. Thanks. ये रेजोल्यूशन जो 7वां रेजोल्यूशन उसमें आर्टिकल 2 में फिर बोला कि स्त्रियां जो है वो मार्शल आर्ट जानते हैं, मार्शल आर्ट में भाग नहीं ले सकती हैं, फुटबॉल जो नहीं खेल सकते, इंडोर सॉकर, बीच, ये वाटर पोलो, कई खेल में इन लोगों ने मनाही करी कि आप नहीं खेल, स्त्रियां या लड़कियां नहीं खेल सकती हैं। और दूसरा बताया कि एक तरफ तो उन्होंने कई जगह उनको मौका दिया है, एक जगह बोला है कि आप ये सारे खेल नहीं खेल सकते हैं, और ये भी बोला है कि कई एज वाले ही खेल सकते हैं, उनको वहां भी छूट नहीं दिया है, और कब प्रैक्टिस करना है उसके लिए भी इन्होंने काफी रेस्ट्रिक्शन इम्पोज किया। उन्होंने बोला कि सिर्फ इस वक्त पे करना है, तो कुछ भी क्लियर नहीं था। लेकिन एक दूसरी तरफ ये आई कि जो डॉक्टर्स है, मेडिकल प्रोफेशन वाले बोले कि अगर स्त्रियां खेलेंगी तभी तो जब स्त्रियां स्वस्थ होंगी, उनके बच्चे भी स्वस्थ होंगे, इसलिए हमें खेल को प्रमोट करना चाहिए। लेकिन एक सबसे अजीब बात है कि उनका जो लॉ में एक ये भी पैरा दिया है कि जो स्त्रियां हैं उनको अपने घर के कर्तव्य की तरफ उनको ज्यादा ध्यान देना चाहिए, और उन्हें जो जैसे बच्चों की पढ़ाई है, बच्चों को कैसे ऊपर बच्चों को बड़ा करना, ये उनकी जिम्मेदारी, इसलिए वो ज्यादातर घर में ही होना है, ये करके एक पैरा भी दिया है। तो आप देखेंगे कि कितना मुश्किल था जो है लड़कियां या जो क्योंकि वो स्त्री है, हम बोलते हैं जेंडर विमेन के लिए कितनी ज्यादा मुश्किलों का सामना करना है। इस सब के लिए लॉ आया। हम लोग लकी, हमारे भारत में ऐसा लॉ तो है नहीं, लेकिन बाहर के राज्य में, कई राज्य में भी है। हम सोचते हैं ब्राजील जो सॉकर का राज्य है वो बहुत अच्छा, लेकिन मैडम बार बार कहती है आप जो बाहर देखते वो अच्छा नहीं है, सिर्फ जो है आदमी लोग या लड़कों के लिए सॉकर है, लेकिन आप लड़कियों की तरफ अगर शुरू में देखते तो वो वैसा माहौल नहीं है जो आदमी लोगों के लिए, जो आदमी लोगों को मिलता है सेम, जो औरतों को नहीं मिल पाती है, इसीलिए काफी लॉ बनाया गया। मैम थैंक्स।
Okay. So the second law that was created in Brazil, yeah, okay, was the law 6251 that was created in 1975. At this period, we still have a dictatorial regime here. So the state continues trying to control the society in so many different ways. So what this law talking about is sports, about the structure of sport council, about military, university, and community sports, about the creation of a national sports system, and about sport resources. So it had 52 articles, but none of them mention the participation of women in sport and leisure activities here in Brazil. Okay.
अभी आप ये देख रहे हैं, इसमें पहले भी जो मैम could you just see the previous slide please?
Yeah.
आप ये देख रहे हैं जो इनका जो डिक्टेटर का, मुझे हिंदी का एग्जैक्ट नहीं होता, जो पहले रूल वही चला रहा था, तो काफी उनको रोक थी उनके लिए, लेकिन इन्होंने बाद में जो है जो 6.251 का जो लॉ निकला, जो 1975 में लॉ निकला, उसमें इन्होंने करीब 52 आर्टिकल्स थे, जिसमें स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ स्पोर्ट्स काउंसिल का कैसे होना चाहिए, मिलिट्री कैसे होना चाहिए, यूनिवर्सिटी स्पोर्ट्स, सारा सिस्टम बोला, लेकिन कहीं भी उन्होंने स्त्रियों का और खेल और स्त्री का के बारे में कोई कहीं भी उसके बारे में कोई मेंशन नहीं था। यस मैम, थैंक्स।
Okay. I didn't mention it before because it's not a specific law about sport, but in this middle time we had the federal constitution that was created in 1988. So this is the law that still governs the country in all fields. In the Article 217, it was said that is the duty of the state to promote formal and non-formal sporting practice, such as the right of each. And in a few topics later, the allocation of public resources for the priority promotion of educational sport, and in specific cases for high performance sport. So what we see here is that the state should promote and organize sports in Brazil as a right of each. So women, girls, as I said before, children, elderly people, people with disability, everyone should have access to sport. And the priority should be the education of sport. But as I said a few slides before, in Brazil, it's people financial, like high performance sports and not educational sports. So this is something that we are like outside the law. Okay.
तो मैंने बता रही थी कि जो 1988 में जो फेडरल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का जो स्पोर्ट का लेजिस्लेशन बना है, यू हैव अ लेजिस्लेशन फॉर स्पोर्ट मैम. सो इसमें कि आर्टिकल जो 217 में बताया कि स्टेट को सारा जो ऑर्गेनाइज्ड या नॉन ऑर्गेनाइज्ड स्पोर्ट्स उनको देना चाहिए, और सबको किसी के लिए भी उनको सबको डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं देना है, कोई डिफरेंस नहीं दिखाना है, सबको एक समान देखना है. और ये जो भी फैसिलिटीज है, रिसोर्सेस सारे पहले एजुकेशनल स्पोर्ट माने जो पढ़ाई के तौर पे हम जो स्पोर्ट है उसके लिए देना है, और हाई परफॉर्मेंस स्पोर्ट के लिए भी देना है. लेकिन मैडम ये कह रही, ये इवन तो लेजिस्लेशन में कहा गया है, लेकिन जब हाई परफॉर्मेंस स्पोर्ट आता है तो उसमें बहुत पैसे की जरूरत, बहुत ज्यादा खर्चा होता है, क्योंकि हाई परफॉर्मेंस ट्रेनिंग में बहुत ज्यादा रहता है, जो मैडम खुद भुगत चुके हैं, क्योंकि वो बहुत ज्यादा कमाए, बहुत एक्सपेंडिचर आता है. तो वो इस दायरे में नहीं आ रहा है. जो एलीट परफॉर्मेंस है, जो हम बताते हैं हाई परफॉर्मेंस स्पोर्ट के लिए, जो लोग उसके लिए हमें अलग सोर्स से पैसा रहा, वो ये लेजिस्लेशन में नहीं आता है. Yes, ma'am. Thanks.
Yeah, okay. So after the Federal Confederation, we had the Zico law. You probably know this name. He was a famous soccer player, and in 1990, he was the one who took care of the Department of Sport. Okay. So at this time, what this law said about the relationship between clubs and athletes, about the concept and purpose of sports, about professional practice, and about sports justice. It had 71 articles and 11 chapters, but none of the articles and none of the chapters mention women's participation in sports.
जिको लॉ में जो है, आप देख रहे हैं कि ये जो पहले तो फर्नांडो कलर 1990 में और ये 1993 में, ये बहुत अच्छे सॉकर प्लेयर रह चुके हैं. लेकिन इन्होंने जब स्पोर्ट्स की जब पहली डिपार्टमेंट भी थी मिनिस्ट्री में, तो इन्होंने टेक ओवर लिया था. लेकिन इवन दो ये क्लब्स हुआ, एथलीट्स हुआ, इन्होंने काफी आर्टिकल्स 71 आर्टिकल्स और चैप्टर्स सब थे, काफी मेंशन हुई है खेल के बारे में. कहीं भी स्त्रियों के लिए खेल के स्त्री और खेल, इसके बारे में कहीं भी आर्टिकल में चर्चा नहीं हुआ. ये कब का रीसेंट है, क्योंकि हम रीसेंट माने 1993 भी अगर बोला जाए तो हमें लगता है रीसेंट, लेकिन तब भी उन लोगों ने, किसी ने सोचा नहीं कि हमें स्त्री के बारे में, स्त्री और खेल को भी साथ में आर्टिकल में आना चाहिए. उसके बारे में आया नहीं 1993 तक. यस मैम, थैंक्स.
Yeah, okay. So the next law was Pelé law. I think you also know this name. He was our big star of soccer here in Brazil. And after Zico, he was the one who took care about the Department of Sports before the Ministry of Sport were created. So at this time, we were not anymore in a dictatorial period. So we have a few things that were interesting here. So what the Pele law, the law, how can I say this? We had the Zico law, and the Pele law just made a few changes in Zico law. So what were those changes? About the creation of a national sports system, the development of a sport council, doping control, and focus on high performance sports regulation. And when we say high performance sport, we are again reducing sport to soccer. And in this first part that was created in 1998, we had no articles and no chapters talking about women's sports. But in 2016, we had a small modification of the law, and the paragraph was added. It was the article 55, I'm sorry, that talked about anti-doping. I really don't know how to say those words in English. Sports justice. So it was said that the choice of the anti-doping sport justice members will seek to ensure parity between men and women in their composition. So in the organization, you should have men and women in this sports organization. So this was something nice, and it's something new here in Brazil. And the last,
Ma'am,
okay,
just a previous.
yeah, sure.
आप सब पेले के बारे में जानते हैं 1998 में। उससे पहले जो था वो डिक्टेटर माने एक ही पर्सन। आप डिक्टेटर का मतलब जानते हैं, जैसे हिटलर का सब जानते ही हैं कि जो पहले बोलते हैं वही रूल चलता है। लेकिन उसके बाद में बदलाव आया, और आप देखेंगे कि 1998 से पहले ने जब टेक ओवर किया, उसके बाद एक नेशनल स्पोर्ट्स सिस्टम स्पोर्ट्स का बना। स्पोर्ट्स को काफी ज्यादा अच्छा इम्प्रूवमेंट, डोपिंग कंट्रोल पे हुआ, फिर कैसे हाई स्पोर्ट्स पर्सन पे हाई स्पोर्ट्स बना है। लेकिन 216 में ही जाके इनका आर्टिकल जो 55 में एंटी डोपिंग के लिए, क्योंकि हमें देख रहा है कि इसमें स्पोर्ट्स फॉर जस्टिस वो भी जुड़ा गया, और साथ में आदमी और स्त्री में जो है इनके लिए एक ही जैसा उनको जो भी है पैरिटी मिलनी चाहिए। हमें उनमें कोई डिफरेंस दिखाना चाहिए, स्पेशली जो मेंबर्स हैं उनके लिए। ये इस तरह से उन्होंने उसमें 216 में इन्होंने इस तरह का एक आर्टिकल भी आया। Can you just explain to me, madam, the choice of GAD members will seek to ensure parity between what GAD is? Sorry, JAD is JAD.
Oh, GAD means anti-doping sports justice.
Okay. तो इसमें जो ये जो डोपिंग एंटी डोपिंग स्पोर्ट्स जस्टिस में जो ग्रुप होगा, उसमें स्त्रियां भी होंगी और आदमी इसमें आपस में ये लोग भी कमिटी में, क्योंकि मैंने पहले के स्लाइड में दिखाया ऑस्ट्रेलिया हुआ, यूएस हुआ, दूसरे राज्य में सब स्पोर्टिंग ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में कितनी स्त्रियां होनी चाहिए, कितने आदमी लोग होने चाहिए, उसका एक रेशियो दे रखा है। लेकिन हमारे यहाँ पे अभी तक आया नहीं, लेकिन कई राज्य उसके लिए लड़ रहे हैं कि उसमें आपको स्त्रियों को भी मौका देना चाहिए। तो इस तरह का मेरे को तो इसके बारे में तो पहले के आने से काफी बदलाव आया। यस मैम।
Okay. And the last law, the last specific law about sports here in Brazil was Maguito Vilela law. He's a politician, is that right? He was a lawyer, but he made a few things about sports. So after the creation, as I said before, it was a department of sports, and here we had the first time that sports were in a ministry, but it divided the ministry with tourism. So this law talked about the permission to choose clubs and sports organization to become a company, and the prohibition of transfer fee. So here again, we have no article that mentioned the participation of women in sports and leisure.
prohibition of transfer fee. Could you just explain about that? Like in a club, you need to have a fee, and then is it so? I don't know. Could you just explain that?
They couldn't like change teams. It will have a specific rule for changing teams and how one team should get paid for the player.
Yeah, thanks. I could just explain. मैग्योचर वेरेला जो सर थे 2000 में, ये एक एडवोकेट भी थे, लॉयर थे, और साथ में इन्होंने फिर मिनिस्ट्री लिया। उस समय मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ स्पोर्ट्स के अलावा स्पोर्ट्स के साथ टूरिज्म भी हुआ। उसमें इन्होंने ये छूट दिया कि जो एथलीट्स है वो अपना क्लब चुन सकते हैं, और कोई भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, और इनमें क्या है कि एक क्लब से दूसरे क्लब में भी अगर उनको चेंज करे, पहले उसके लिए एक ट्रांसफर फी था, लेकिन उन्होंने वो बना कर दिया। लेकिन 2000 में भी इन्होंने कहीं भी स्त्रियों का स्पोर्ट का पार्टिसिपेशन में भी इन्होंने कहीं इसके बारे में मेंशन नहीं किया, बताया नहीं है। 2000 में भी आप देखेंगे कितना रीसेंट है। सब कुछ आने के बाद भी स्त्रियों के लिए एक ऐसा जगह नहीं मिल पाया। यस मैम, थैंक्स।
Okay. So what we see, considering the legislation of sports and the National Sports Conference, is that especially the legislation do not dialogue with the proposal of international discussions that emphasized women in sports, especially regards to the expansion of opportunities. So we have, for example, the Brighton Declaration, the Beijing Platform organized by the UN, and the IOC World Conference of Women in Sports that talked about how to improve women's sports and about how to get girls to play sports and get involved. But what we see is that in Brazil, it doesn't dialogue with those documents. So we were like so far away from what every country in the world, not every country, but I mean a few countries in the world were doing to get girls involved in sports.
अभी मैडम ये बता रही थी कि इन्होंने ब्राजील का और दूसरे दुनिया में का इन्होंने एक कंपैरिजन दिया, तो उन्होंने देखा कि जो ब्राइटन डिक्लेरेशन है या बेजिंग प्लेटफॉर्म है, जहाँ यूनाइटेड नेशंस का है, आईओसी में, यहाँ सब स्त्रियों के बारे में चर्चा हो रहा था। स्त्रियों के बारे में, कैसे स्त्री के लिए खेल की जरूरत है, महत्व है, उसके बारे में सब जगह चर्चा हो रहा था। लेकिन ब्राजील में उसके बारे में ये सुनने के बाद भी कहीं भी उसके बारे में लिखा नहीं गया, उसका चर्चा का विषय नहीं था। सब जानते थे लेकिन कहीं भी डॉक्यूमेंट लिख के नहीं आया। ये इन्होंने एक ऐसी कंपैरिजन बनाया कि देखिए कई राज्य ऐसे हैं जहां अभी भी स्त्रियों को वो कर नहीं पा रहे, वो भाग नहीं ले पा रहे, उसमें कई रोक होती है। थैंक्स मैम।
Yeah, okay. So the question about policy in Brazil is, who is the policy for? So we saw so many different laws and national conference that people talked about sport, but those policies were not for women and girls in sport. So the first thing that we need to do to change our reality here in Brazil and whatever we are in our city or in different countries is to know that exists a social like a social thing, a social role that says that politics is a role for men, even and especially sports, because it puts together politics that is also a social thing about to men, and sports that is also a social thing for men. So when we are talking about sports policy, is a really how can I say this? It's like a specific thing for men that people think that this is the right thing to do, or a role for men. The second thing that, considering this, we have to challenge this naturalization that sports and politics are a space for men, like a place for men, and recognize that women has we have a lack of power of women in history, in politics and sports. And considering all of this, we have to strengthen rights of minority groups, not only girls and women, but also kids and elderly people and disabled people.
यस मैम। हाँ मैम, ये बता दी कि ये जो पॉलिसी ये इन्होंने फिर पूछा ब्राजील में कि मैडम स्टडी ले रही है हमारे में, हम लोग ने आज तक कभी कोई डॉक्यूमेंटेशन ज्यादातर नहीं लिए, फिर भी हमारे में हम देख रहे हैं कि मुश्किलें कम है। लेकिन इन्होंने एक प्रश्न पूछा कि ये किसके लिए पॉलिसी बनाई है, क्या सिर्फ आदि लोगों के लिए है, इसमें स्त्रियों का क्यों कोई जगह नहीं है। तो इन्होंने देखा कि जो पॉलिटिक्स होती है उसमें भी इन्होंने क्या महसूस किया कि पॉलिटिक्स में सिर्फ आदि लोग कर सकते हैं, तो पॉलिटिक्स और स्पोर्ट्स को भी एक ही साथ लेके आए। उन्होंने कहा जब पॉलिटिक्स स्पोर्ट्स आदि लोग होगा तो स्पोर्ट्स भी आदमी के साथ ही होगा। तो इसमें इन्होंने एक नेचुरल माने इन्होंने बताया कि स्त्रियां होते हुए उनमें ये लिमिटेशन है, वो ये नहीं कर पाएंगी। तो इसमें ये हो गया कि माइनॉरिटी में आ गई स्त्रियां सिर्फ नहीं, हम लोग हमारे यहाँ जब माइनॉरिटी बोलते हैं वो अलग होते हैं, लेकिन हम दूसरे कास्ट या बच्चे होंगे या जिससे हम अलग जो जिसमें कम लोग हैं, लेकिन यहाँ तो स्त्रियां भी आ गई है, स्त्री को अलावा बच्चे होंगे और भी जो लोगों को इस यहाँ तक खेल जहां तक पहुंच नहीं पा रहे हैं। तो इसलिए पॉलिसी हमें बहुत जरूरी कि हमें सही ढंग का एक पॉलिसी होनी चाहिए, और हमें इंडिया में भी अभी बहुत जरूरत है कि हम स्पोर्ट्स के लिए स्पोर्ट्स पॉलिसी है, लेकिन किस तरह से सही तरह से आर्टिकल करके लॉ में आए वो भी हमारे लिए बहुत ज्यादा जरूरत है। थैंक्स मैम।
Okay. So another thing that we should do is recognize that we are political subjects, and not only women, but we need men to get involved in this fight. And this is something really important to get everybody together fighting for women's space in sports. Okay, this is what I'm telling here.
तो इसमें मैम ने बोला है कि हम जब लेते हैं इसके लिए एक जंग जो है हमें इसके लड़ना है, लेकिन ये स्त्रियां अकेली नहीं कर पाएंगी, हमें इनके साथ हमारे साथ जो भी ये स्त्री है आदमी लोग है सब मिलके करेंगे तभी हम इससे सफल हो पाएंगे, क्योंकि कभी भी एक साथ नहीं, सारे मिलके जब होगा तभी होता है। तो इसके लिए हम चाहते कि सब साथ हो तभी हम लोग एक सही पब्लिक पॉलिसी बना पाएंगे।
Okay, I forgot to say something here, is that we need to be active in the construction of public and sports policy. And as I said before, we need men to get involved in this, because sometimes in, I don't know, not here in Brazil, a few things that I'm going to say, yes, but I know that in so many different places, women is still not allowed to be involved. So we need men, we need those men who are there creating policies to make women's sports a thing to discuss. Okay, so what can we do now, considering all of these things that I said before? So we have to contribute to deconstructing stereotypes that exist, that sport is a place for men, and the stereotype that policy is a place for men. And so we need to deconstruct this. We have to promote discussion on the participation of women's sports practice and management. So not only girls and women as an athletes, but as coaches, as managers, and as staff. So anywhere they want to be in. We have to promote equity in access and in opportunities, and especially investments. So once we have more investments, we'll have more results. And as we have more results, we'll have more investments. So this is in women's and girls sports. So we have to make women visible and protagonists in all spheres of sports and leisure, as I said before, and the promotion of programs and bills that guarantee equity in different spaces from school to clubs.
I'm sorry. When we talk of this, अभी ये मैडम भी बता रही थी कि हमें अभी क्या करना चाहिए. तो अभी ये है कि बहुत जरूरी है कि जो चल रहा है उसमें हमें हमारे जरूरत के मुताबिक हमें कुछ बदलाव लाना चाहिए, उसके बारे में सोचना चाहिए, उसके बारे में चर्चा होना चाहिए. स्त्री और स्पोर्ट्स जो प्रैक्टिस करती हैं उनके लिए, और मैनेजमेंट पोजीशन. अब इंडिया का भी मैं अभी देख रही थी क्योंकि मैं भी रिसर्च करी, तो इसमें देखा गया कि सारे जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, हम फेडरेशंस बोलते हैं, कितना स्त्रियों को कितना उनका रेशियो है, कितना भाग हम देखते हैं बहुत कम है. हॉकी में सिर्फ देखा गया कि जहाँ स्त्रियों को ज्यादा है, बाकी सब कई गेम्स में तो है ही नहीं. तो दूसरी बातें अब एटलीस्ट करती हैं. आप देखते हैं जैसे क्रिकेट में है तो पहले जैसे विमेन स्त्री क्रिकेट कर रही है या आदमी लोग कर रहे हैं, दोनों में फर्क है. जब इवन जिनका कितना मिलता है एक एक खेल में, तो देखा जाता है कि हर चीज में लेकिन हम लोग काफी बेटर है बाहर दूसरे राज्य के मुताबिक, लेकिन फिर भी हमें जरूरत है. लेकिन ये मैडम इनकी क्या कह रही थी कि हमें जरूरी कि सिर्फ उनको माहौल नहीं दे, लेकिन उनको कहाँ तक पहुंच सकते हैं, एक्सेसिबिलिटी. आप बोलते हैं कि कैसे वहां तक पहुंच सकते हैं, और कोई अच्छा करते हैं उसके लिए थोड़ी इंसेंटिव दो. अगर आप लड़कियों को बढ़ावा देना चाहते हैं, उनके लिए एक अच्छा सा माहौल बनाओ, उनके लिए मौका दो. मौका देने से हम देख पाएंगे कि और भी अच्छा लड़कियां कर पाएंगे, लेकिन उसके लिए एक कुछ पॉलिसी कुछ करके लिखित में आनी चाहिए. इस तरह से हम देख सकते हैं. अभी हमारे भारत में भी लड़कियों ने हम देख रहे हैं काफी जगह बहुत अच्छा कर पाएंगे, लेकिन उनके लिए उसके लिए हम भी चाहते, कई कई जो गांव होगा कई, वो लोग स्त्रियों को परमिट नहीं करते, लेकिन कितने लोग उभर आए ऊपर, उनको देख के और भी लोग आगे आ रहे हैं. लेकिन हमारे पॉलिसी के तौर पे हमारे पास लिखा हुआ होना चाहिए. इसके लिए कई प्रोग्राम्स होनी चाहिए, बिल होनी चाहिए. तो लगता है कि और कोई भी जगह प्रैक्टिस करने के लिए, सेफ तरह का प्रैक्टिस करने के लिए हर जगह, एक तो है हम इक्विटी माने कि हम 50-50 जो बोलते हैं कितना रेशियो अगर आदमी लोगों को दिया है, वैसे ही हम लेडीज को भी दें. और जो हमारा ओलंपिक्स आने वाला आगे हम देख रहे हैं, वहां पर ये सारा इन लोगों ने उसके मुताबिक प्रमोट किया है. जो टोक्यो ओलंपिक्स होने वाला था उसके मुताबिक उन लोगों ने किया है. तो इस तरह से मैडम बताई थी कि बहुत जरूरी है, क्योंकि हमारे पास डॉक्यूमेंटेशन लिखित कुछ नहीं आ रहा पॉलिसी में. हम लोग बोलते हैं और हमारी बेटियां कितना अच्छा करके आई है. आई वाज जस्ट सेइंग इंडिया इज डूइंग सो वेल इन केस ऑफ वुमेन स्पोर्ट्स, and they're doing excelling in that. So I was just saying the same thing. We need to have documented policies. Giovanna, I was trying to tell that.
Okay.
Thanks, ma'am.
So here I finished this first part about sport policy. And I know that people get curious about how women play rugby here or in any different places, or how I can get girls to play a different sport and get the community involved in a contact sports, and how people let the girls play a contact sport. So the last time a lot of people asked about it, so I'm bringing a few information about this type. We can say there's like a type of rugby that if you teach in a school or in a club, or if you want to make girls and boys play together with one purpose, one target, I can say that this is something that it's nice to use in your classes. So we okay.
Could I just say that? मैडम अभी तक वो जो स्पोर्ट्स पॉलिसीज पे कर ले, लेकिन मैडम रग्बी की है, और मैडम कहती कि अभी गर्ल्स को या हम कैसे ये टैग रग्बी पे हम इनकी सिखा सकते हैं. तो आप ये गेम सीखे कोशिश कर. अभी कोविड में भी अगर बगैर कांटेक्ट किए हम कैसे कर सकते हैं, इसके मुताबिक मैडम अभी आपको जैसे हमको रग्बी के बारे में, टैग रग्बी के बारे में बताएंगे. और मैडम बेसिकली रग्बी प्लेयर है. यस मैम.
Okay. So we call it tag rugby because we have no contact, physical contact. So we use 2 tags, one in each side of our body. So why we can use tag rugby? To use mixed teams and to put girls to play in a sport like a start rugby without physical contact. First,
ma'am, just a minute. Tag is you're putting some strip, you mean? Those are tags?
Yes.
So can you just show the previous slide, please? Can you show the slide?
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. So here there's like...
I'll just explain to them. अभी आप देख रहे हैं टैग रग्बी में बगैर छुए, क्योंकि आप देख रहे हैं दोनों साइड में ये तो हम गर्ल्स बॉयज को मिक्स कर सकते हैं या अलग ढंग से बगैर कोविड में बगैर हम लोग छुए भी ये गेम खेल सकते हैं, छुए हमारे बगैर बॉडी कांटेक्ट, क्योंकि आजकल गवर्नमेंट ने पॉलिसी किया कि हम लोग बॉडी कांटेक्ट गेम को कम करें, लेकिन ये मैडम ने बताया कि ये किस तरह से हम अपना एक गेम है, इसको टैग आप देख रहे हैं, टैग किस तरह से टैग माने आप देख रहे हैं साइड में पीला सा जो डाला है उसको टैग करके बोला है। यस मैम प्लीज।
Okay, so why we should use tag rugby to do this? First, is really easy to play. It's fun and safe because I know that sometimes parents think about girls' safety and their kids' safety. So this is something nice. We can use mixed teams, so boys and girls playing together, and you can play anywhere. So you can play on a field or on a court. So in so many different places. Okay.
टैग रग्बी ऐसा है, आपने देखा कि कभी भी कहीं भी बहुत ही आसान तरीका खेलने के लिए, काफी मजा आता है खेलने में। इसमें हम लड़कियों और लड़कों को एक साथ भी खिला सकते हैं और हम कहीं भी खेल सकते हैं, इसलिए जरूरी नहीं कि हमें एक इंडोर हॉल ही चाहिए, हम कहीं भी खिला सकते हैं, इसलिए बहुत आसान तरीका है, साथ में खेल भी होगा। यस मैम।
Okay. So I'm telling a little bit about the basic rules of this game. The first thing, I don't know if you all know rugby, the regular rugby, but the purpose of the game is to run forward to the other side of the field to score. So you can run forward, but you can only pass backwards. So this is something really nice and different about the other sports that we know. So if you have working with people, not like children with 12 years old or less than that, you have 2 times 2 halves of 15 minutes. And if you are going to work with 13 years old people or more, you have 2 halves of 20 minutes, and you have a break time of 5 minutes. And you can work up to 7 players. So if you have a small place, you can use 5 or 6 players, and you'll decide that considering the meters that you have in the space. So you have 1 player every 3 4 I don't know how to say that in English. Maybe you can help me, Usha, considering the meters that you have. So you can have male category, female, and mixed team. And the try, it's like how we call a goal, or for the ones who knows football, American football, touchdown. In rugby we say try. And we have the ball possession up to the 5 tag, and then I'm going to explain this on the next slideshow.
के बारे में बता रही थी, इसको थोड़ा मॉडिफाई करके ये बताया कि इसमें हम ये लोग आगे भाग सकते हैं लेकिन पीछे सिर्फ पास कर सकते हैं, इस तरह से इन्होंने मॉडिफाई किया। और इन्होंने टाइम की, आप ये ग्राफ देख भी रहे हैं टेबल में कि 12 साल से जो नीचे उनका जो 15 मिनट का है, उसके ऊपर वालों को 20 मिनट, 5 मिनट का ब्रेक है। एक एक प्लेयर को हर 3/4 मीटर में उनको रखा गया है। आप 5 से 6 प्लेयर हमारे अवेलेबिलिटी के मुताबिक हम कर सकते हैं, इसे मेल और फीमेल को भी कर सकते हैं। इन्होंने बोला पॉइंट में, जैसे हम गोल बोलते हैं उसके लिए ट्राई बोलते हैं, एक पॉइंट है। और कितना देर तक बॉल पोजीशन कर सकते हैं, वो 5th टैग है, वो मैडम अभी एक्सप्लेन करेंगे अगले स्लाइड में। यस मैम प्लीज।
Okay, so how the game is organized. So you can, the first thing that you have to know is that you can only remove the tag from the ball carrier. So if the other player doesn't have the ball possession, you cannot take their tag out. You can only remove the tag, the other person's tag, if you have your 2 tags on in your body. If one tag is withdraw, my tag, I'm sorry, the other people's tag, the play stops and a rook is formed. I'm going to say this a little bit longer. So you have 3 seconds to do this and start playing again. Every time you take a tag, you have to yell tag. And you lift the tag and you put it on the floor so the other player can put it on again. So how the Rook is organized. You have to put the ball like here. If someone take my tag, I have to put the ball on the floor between your legs, and the opposite team cannot hide in the Rook, so it can take the ball back. And the player who opened the ball, the one who takes the ball to start the game again, he cannot run with the ball. He has to pass the ball. And to score a try, the ball has to touch the ground and touch the player at the same time. And you cannot run with the ball inside the place that you do. They scored in the place that you score, and you cannot pass the ball in that place too. So later I'll show a video if we have time and we can do so. It will be easier to see how the game works.
A video that would be great because that would give them a better understanding.
Okay.
Can you show the video now, or you have to show it at the
Yeah,
end?
sure.
Sure.
Okay.
Please show me.
So this is adults playing, but it's easier to understand the game. Okay. So they are playing in a field, but you can play whatever you want to play. Okay.
आप ये game देख रहे हैं video? आप video देख रहे हैं?
Okay, so
yes, ma'am, please.
it's a really fast game. So you have to pass the ball backwards and run forward. Every time someone takes your tag out, you have to stop the game and go back to get your tag back. And so you cannot have physical contact. And if the ball goes forward, it changes its possession. Okay, I think my internet is not very good. I have this other video with kids playing.
You can show that, please.
Okay. Okay, can you see the video screen?
This is the same video.
Okay.
No, video isn't playing. But it's the same video. Can you show the children's video?
Yes, let me see what okay, now you can see it?
Yes, objective marker.
Yes. So it's in Portuguese, but you can see the actions and try to understand the game a little bit. And that's how you score.
Try.
So the purpose of the game is to score the most, the one who scores more, okay? So this is how the game starts. With a kick in your foot or running the ball forward and using your hands again. So there, now it's going to be how you attack. Running the ball backwards. And to defend, you have to take a tag and give it back to the person that you took it off. Let me see if I have. Okay, I think it's okay.
But don't forget to show some of your videos. We would like to see some of your game.
Oh, some of my videos, I think I have, I may have one here.
You should show your videos. You playing rugby.
Yeah, okay. So do you want me to say a little bit more about tag rugby, or do you want me to show me a few of my?
We'd like to see some of your videos too.
Okay, let me see.
You show us your videos. I think that we only have time for that. Your videos.
Oh. Okay,
videos.
Let me see if I can find one here. Just a second. It will be. I promise it will be really quick.
No issues. It's great. It's nice to see you in action. I mean, we are really lucky to have you. It's such a wonderful thing to have you.
Okay, let me see.
मैडम अपना वीडियो दिखाएंगी रग्बी में जो ट्रेन करती हैं आप मैडम का देख सकती हैं मैडम अपना वीडियो निकाल रही हैं
Okay, I'm just.
You need to share the link with us. Maybe we can.
Yeah, I don't have it on YouTube.
Okay, fine. We'll be showing your training from the YouTube. We'll show that.
Okay.
But in the meantime, you will see your videos also. I think Pranesh will show you madam in action in training. So that was great. We Googled and we got it. Last time we showed something.
Oh, I found it. I think I found it. Yes.
Great.
Okay.
Wow. Wow.
This was last year that my team was playing against the Brazilian team. So here I am.
Okay. So we have the video.
Yes, let me see if I find, I think there's a video that it's me of trying to score.
Okay.
I think it's this one.
Okay. So seeing in action, that's great.
So I'm number 6 here.
So you're trying to pull it. Don't. It's okay. We can see a bit of the glimpse of the game. No issues.
Yeah.
Because we are unable. It's still.
Okay, so here is me.
Okay.
And then I take the girl down.
Fine. Yeah. अब देख रहे हैं बॉल का लेके रग्बी गेम इतना.
Yeah, so one of the things that is really nice about rugby is that you can have small players and big players, so anyone can play. So this is something really nice. Okay. So I'm here.
Okay.
In a few seconds, we will score. And now we score.
Oh, that's great. अब देख रहे हैं मैडम ने स्कोर किया.
That's me.
Yeah.
Then I get in contact, pass the ball. And then we score.
That's great. It's beautiful, nice. आप लोग अभी वीडियो देख चुके हैं मैडम का. ब्राजील टीम क्या मैडम तैयारी कर रही है अभी अगला वर्ल्ड कप के लिए. पार्टिसिपेंट्स के इंफॉर्मेशन के लिए बता रही हूँ. We'll show one of your training videos also, ma'am. Ma'am, we'll share the video of training.
Okay.
Finish.
Sorry?
We'll show others your training. One YouTube video class time. We'll just share that to the participants.
Okay.
Your
Okay.
training. Yeah, I think we actually saw you, the Google. Finish. Yeah. अब देखें मैडम को मैडम ट्रेन कर रही हैं तो हमने तो गूगल से सर्च किया था. मैम का ट्रेनिंग का है. When was it, Giovanna? This was it when? When was this video taken? Giovanna, when was this taken?
It was taken in March of last year. So it's been a while.
It's a lot of time. पिछले बार का वीडियो हमने मैडम का देखा था. Ma'am, you could just wind up so we can ask you questions too.
Yeah, sure.
You'd like to take up the screen? You could do that. You could wind up, closing, or you want to say something?
Okay, so I think I didn't understand.
You can just close. You can wind it up. You can sum up.
Okay,
your session.
I think. Okay. Did it work?
No.
No.
You're sharing. It's not yet finished. Your panelists have given very impressive, but they're not putting their names on. I think it's good if you can put in your name too.
Okay, my
No, not yours, not
my
yours. Any problem? It's okay then, Giovanna. I think we can just wind it sum up like that. You can just speak, no issues. Just a
okay.
sentence.
Okay, so I'm just finished my presentation. So I'm thanking everyone to watching, and if you have any questions or if you want to email me, I'm really open to give you more information about sports in Brazil or about rugby and tag rugby. So you can just text me. My email is I'm gonna write it down here.
On the yes. You can put in the chat box. मैडम अपना
Yes.
चैट बॉक्स में मेल डाल रही हैं आपको कुछ ब्राजील में रग्बी रग्बी के बारे में कुछ भी जानकारी करना है तो आप इंग्लिश मैडम को डाल सकते हैं तो आप हमें बताएंगे तो हम मैडम से कर सकते हैं तो आप पूछ सकते हैं क्योंकि मैडम को तो हिंदी आता नहीं आप बता सकते हैं आप किसी को कुछ जानकारी चाहिए तो मैडम अपना टाइप करके डाल रही है अपना
So,
मेल आईडी दे रही हूँ
okay. So you can email me. I have a lot of material that I can share with you and you can use with your kids in your classes. I mean, I think this is what I think about when I'm going to an event and having a speech or listen to someone is this exchange of informations, and we try to change the world a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. So I'm very happy to be here, and I will be very happy to talk to you if you want to email me or follow me on the Instagram. I'm really open to talk to you about all of those things. Thank you for the opportunity, Usha, once again.
Thank you so much, Giovanna. Darlene, Beatrice, I think we can't see you. Darlene is Beatrice also. Maybe you'll have to come onto the videos. It was such a wonderful session. Darlene too. Such a wonderful session, Giovanna. And just one question is, I think I asked the same thing last time too. How do you manage this such a stressful event from getting into academics, teaching, getting into all this and training? मैंने मैडम से पूछा है कि मैडम कैसे ये सब कंबाइन करती है अपना पढ़ाई का कोई करना है उसके लिए काम भी करना है साथ में अपना ट्रेनिंग भी करना है ये सारा एक साथ कैसे कर पाती है उसका मैंने मैडम को क्वेश्चन पूछा प्लीज
Actually, I really don't know how I manage all of those things. Sometimes I can't do this. I'm just living and trying to get myself organized and taking what is priority on that moment. But it's something really hard because, especially on this year, I have to present one part of my thesis, and I have the World Cup, so it's a really important year. So I also try to organize what time I'm going to practice rugby and what time I'm going to study, and try to be a better teacher at the university and teach my class. So this is something that I really don't know how I do this. I'm being really honest. I'm just trying to live one day and then the other day and then the other day and try to organize myself the best that I can. But it's really hard because I have to give up sometimes to being with my friends, to being with my family, and but this is something I have these opportunities that, for example, the World Cup that is probably not coming back some other time, so I have to focus on this right now.
Thanks. Yes, just one more question. I know indeed, I think you're the best role model for all the athletes because even they're unable to take up the academic pressure and only training when you say they find it so difficult. I know how this multitasking and the pride that you have to do. You are a true leader, the best ambassador. I think it's indeed great. And it's a great blessing. And you are the best role model to speak to athletes and try to inspire and motivate them because that makes a real difference. But was there any hurdle, especially you spoke of women, and in terms of your training? Because do you think that were there any hurdles, some problems, challenges which you encountered being a female and into a game of rugby, which was not, I don't know whether it's as popular. So what are the challenges?
I mean, I think the first challenge that I had when I started playing rugby was that some members of my family didn't think that was something to a girl should do. So sometimes I still hear, well, you should not play that. That's a male thing. So I think this is the first thing that anyone that would play rugby will probably listen to. Uh, the second thing, uh, I think, is the contact. I mean, it's really different, a different game for that I ever seen. I mean, you have to go forward and you have to pass backwards. So it's you have to be really mentally prepared for that and to the physical contact. I think the financial, it's something that it's really hard. It's a real challenge for any players here in Brazil, even if you are a boy or a girl, because it's not a well-known sport here. So people don't want to pay you to do that. So I have to work to pay my trips for my championships. So anytime I travel with my team, I have to take money from my pocket to pay the transport and to pay for my um, lunch and my dinner and the place that I'm staying. So I think this is one of the hardest things to play rugby here in Brazil. I think this will be my challenge.
आपको पता चला मैडम पहले बता रही थी कि जो रग्बी जो गेम है इनके फैमिली में कई लोग बोले कि ये तो लड़कियों को खेलना नहीं चाहिए, तो इस तरह से प्रॉब्लम था, फिर भी मैडम कर चुके हैं। फिर कहती है कि ये गेम में बहुत ज्यादा जो, क्योंकि कांटेक्ट का सिर्फ नहीं है, कई मूवमेंट्स ऐसे हैं जिसमें बहुत मुश्किल रहता है। फिर पैसे के तौर पे रग्बी में गर्ल्स या बॉयज के लिए गवर्नमेंट कुछ पैसा नहीं देती है, इसलिए इनको इनको हर चीज के लिए यात्रा करके ट्रेनिंग करनी है, हर चीज में इनको अपनी जेब से खर्चा करना पड़ता है, तो ये एक बहुत बड़ी मुश्किल है। पिछली बार मैडम कह रही थी एक बस में वो 18 घंटा ट्रेनिंग के लिए 18 घंटा करके, लास्ट टाइम यू नरेट यू टुक अबाउट 18 hours इन अ बस यू वेंट for a competition. Giovanna, I think you mentioned that last time you had to travel sitting in a bus for your competition. You mentioned that to us. So so that was a big constraint which you can't think of if you tell our athletes. So you went in such uncomfortable position to play a match.
Yeah, we travel on the last time and we are going to travel 2 weeks from now. It's 15 hours.
And they 15 hours.
15 hours to get what we need to. And we were in a small bus, so our legs were like this inside the bus.
Oh
and we couldn't find a better position to sleep, so we almost spent the whole night awake, and we had to play on the next day. So, and then come back again. And as soon as we get back, we had to start working again. So it's just, we're just like living and not sleeping and trying to do a lot of things.
तो अभी आपको ये बताना चाह रही हूँ कि मैडम बता रही थी कि ये लोग ज्यादातर ये कंपटीशन जाते हैं 15 घंटा बस में बैठ के, छोटी सी बस में, वो कहते हैं पैर हिला नहीं पाते हैं, इतना मुश्किल का सामना करना पड़ता है एक ट्रेनिंग के लिए, और ये लोग सब करते हैं। और वापस आने के बाद भी उनको कमाने के लिए, जैसे अपना नौकरी में ज्वाइन करो, सारा करो, उसमें कहीं भी रिलैक्सेशन नहीं है। तो मैं कहता हूँ कि बहुत अच्छी सीख है। यू आर द बेस्ट पर्सन टू स्पीक टू पीपल, बिकॉज वी ऑफन कंप्लेन ऑफ द complain that we don't have this, we don't have that. That's the reason why we are able to get a good performance, is what most of us say. I mean, when we talk to our people, they say, if I had this facility, maybe I could do good. So they think that all across in the Western, the world is very nice, because we feel that's the glamour which we see. But I don't think now, I think people don't know what the reality is.
Yes. I think this is something really nice, because exactly what you said. When we look people playing, we only see what is happening there, and we don't see all those challenges that we have hidden.
Hidden.
So
I know.
I mean, if you are an athlete in Brazil, it's not something easy. You have to give
Does
up
the
a lot of
government?
things.
Yeah, I understand for rugby. What about other sport? Does the government pay for them for the other sport?
Some of them, we call it like Fantastic Four here in Brazil. It's like the most force this the four sports that are most played here and people teach here is soccer or indoor soccer, volleyball, basketball, and handball. So if you play one of these sports, especially if you play soccer, you may have financial programs to that, but and volleyball as well, but handball and basketball not so much. But those are the sports that you may have money to play, that you receive money to play. But if you play any sports that are not on this four, the Fantastic Four, you may have to pay a lot of things.
मेरे को लग रहा है आप सबको समझ में आ गया, मैडम जी बता रही हैं, आपको काफी समझ में आ गया होगा कि हम लोग देखते हैं भारत में तो कितना अच्छा है, मौका भी बहुत है. So now I think there's one from Ashutosh Anand, like if someone wants to play rugby in India, then what are the opportunities here? But I think in case of India, we do have rugby teams. There is rugby coming up, but it isn't as much so popular, or it's just in the stage of coming up. But there are intervarsity I think there are inter-university and national level competitions too. I'm not very sure about that, about the Indian context. This was one
Yeah,
of the questions.
I really don't know about Indian
India.
context as well. I know there are a few countries near there that have they're great teams who competing high level in World Cup, but I really don't know about Indian context. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's I knew that. Well, I think it's today. It's so much. I mean, we don't feel like stopping because it's so much learning, even at this time. Madam Beatrice, for your remarks, please. Beatrice, ma'am, for your remarks, please.
Okay. Well, it's a pleasure to be here again, with Usha and all the team. And thank you for Giovanna to come to show your experience about the history and the legislation sport in Brazil, and your practicing rugby. I think it's very important. But I would like to say that this movement is part of a larger process that country was going through, that you showed. And then especially the big change was the Constitution in 1988 that you mentioned. But I would like to mention someone very important that people forget, is a woman called Ruth Cardozo. She was the wife of the president. She was a great anthropologist, and she should be the president. But at that time, no women as president. But she did a lot, and for human rights, social movements, for women, disabled people, indigenous, and she modernized the country. The idea of a social movement was something different after her, and she did a lot. That's very important to mention the presence of and she passed away, unfortunately, in 2008. But another thing that change laws are fundamental, but do not means changing culture. So we need to work hard and hard to change the mentality and open more space for women. Sometimes, women are not, is a little bit discouraged, but we keep moving on. We keep doing, because it's hard to change culture, because people are stable, especially men are very stable. They have that position and they don't want to share with another woman. So it takes time, but takes courage and patience. Many times it patience. And another thing that it helps, the globalization, internet are helping all this changing the world, that we are in better situation now. Before we didn't have this, we had the laws and that, but now we can have access. And especially the programs at the universities, they change and they are making change for the new generation like you and the other young people that have access to all the information and then to change the world. And then thanks also for the United Nations programs, World Health Organizations, UNESCO, IAPESC, ICSP. And I think, we needed to thank very much the Khelo India program. That is one of the best example of this globalization that we are here. You are in Paraná, Brazil. I am in the state of São Paulo, Brazil. Darlene in the US, and then Claudia that had to live and she's from Mexico, and the other Usha and all the students there, the coaches are in India. Can you imagine that you couldn't do this before? You can see how good is the world in this sense. I'm sure that you need to work harder, the day life, that you show your life is not very easy. And I'm very happy that you are an activist, academic, and sport woman. And that I wish you luck in your life.
Lovely. It was such a wonderful information given, because you saw the transformation, at least for some period of time, as compared to the generation that they are. And I think there are a lot of people who fought for this movement, and then you definitely be one among them to see that it's more comfortable now. And you're going to, Gio and others are going to make it comfortable for the coming future. That's something great. And you have such a vision. Thanks so much, Beatrice. Thank you. My light, Gio Darlin, for your remarks, please.
I wanted to follow up on what everyone seems to be indicating. We need to sort of think about personal growth and also society growth. And I've done a little studying about this because I really am fascinated. How do people grow? And so there are sort of, in my thinking, at least 4 categories. And the first one is like when we're all babies, we are very dependent upon mama and daddy, but mama especially because she gives us all the things we must have in order to survive. So we're very dependent. Then as we get older, we become independent. And that's very important to at the age of 2 or 3 to say, I'm going to be independent, and we call them the terrible twos. Every time you say yes, they say no, so that's independence. And then we grow to a place in our lives where we are interdependent with people, which means we stand, but we now are going to come together with other people. And the last one that I think it makes the whole picture has to do with integration, which means that everybody's got an equal value, etc. And we can now integrate that into our own lives as well as with others. And so as we look at movements, women's movements, sport movements, ability movements, etc., we have to sort of look to see where are we in these 4 areas. And one of the things I think that could help, I'm not sure, but I think could help, is if every person understood these 4 areas, then it's possible for each person to be able to look to see, well, where am I and where do I need to grow to? Because Giovanna was saying some wonderful things about how she organizes her life, and sometimes it's a mystery, but really underneath, if we look, there is no mystery about this. She knows how to self-discipline, how to organize, how to be passionate. And she can use these skills in order to go from one thing being dependent, independent, interdependent, and then integrated. But she's not quite to the integrated part because society is not saying, oh, this is a good idea. I think it's wonderful to play women's rugby. So I just wanted to add that to our thought mix to see, because this has really helped me a lot personally. Where am I on this issue? Am I still dependent? Am I independent on this issue, or am I integrated with this? And where then do I still need to go and push in order to make the thing actually work for people and societies? And obviously that's all within the context of where you live, but still I think those ideas might be helpful. Just a thought, and if someone else has some ideas about that, I would love to hear them at some point. Thank you. Well done.
That's great. Giovanna, Beatrice, do you want to respond, say something with what Darlin mentioned? Giovanna?
I never thought about those 4 words. So, and it's really interesting because it makes a lot of sense. So it's something that I might have to write it down and look at that and see, okay, so what I'm doing now.
It's great. It was a great learning because I find this, I think that's a time because with being independent, responsibility comes and that makes a real change. I think if each one could think of how Giovanna, because she felt it was a need. But when you talk of sport, then they say somebody else should actually start, like you say, we still are dependent. When you talk of sporting, we are dependent because we can't move ahead unless we get the support system. That's what comes in. But it's high time to inculcate in what you said. That's a very important thing, which we lack in our culture a lot. Because the way we bring up our children most of the time, either it maybe is pampered, but I find the Western culture, like at least to some extent, they're independent by age, by they come in. As you said, here it's not possible. You can't say no to it. So that difference, and with this, they are accountable. They become responsible for what it is. But which it's rarely find. I'm not saying we don't find, rarely find in the Indian context. But I think it's a great learning. What you mentioned is right, and we should see how best we can start putting it in. But then, when you talk of the 4 principles, is right. But how do you put it into practice? That's the most important part. Like you, even I said, as an athlete, the athlete should start owning and start finding, as Giovanna does. If each athlete tries, I'm sure they can go much better because we wouldn't have excuses for things. If something goes wrong, then you say this wasn't good. We often think of it, but I think that's such a valid point, Darren, which you put across. So I find it's a great learning for us, and that's which is making us sitting here. So it's been such a wonderful session. Giovanna, I don't know how to thank you because because we are with the Sports Authority of India, where besides physical education, we also have coaching. We have excellence, and we have athletes. But there are a lot of athletes, I think they'll be looking forward to certain guidance, how to go about. But basically, find they're mostly submissive. Like they won't speak up. If you have problems, you start. And many times, as Beatrice said, that the go or the hope doesn't come in. They don't go. Once you stumble first, then that's receding. So, like Darlene said, she had a hand problem, her hand got injured, but then that didn't stop her from going ahead anyway. Same is the case with Giovanna. She started her running, and Darlene, Giovanna has, I think, injured her ankle too. So I said we have 2 among here. One is with the hand, because you find Darlene with the hand, and Giovanna is ready, but she said, "I'm going to get back." So I think that's the driving force. And I think this would be the best source of inspiration to inspire athletes too. So thank you. How do you say thank you in Portuguese?
Obrigada.
Can you put that in chat box? Can you put that in chat box, please, so I can thank you? Obrigada. Obrigada. Oh, wow.
Beatrice, did you have something you wanted to add?
Beatrice?
Well, I'll just say that when I was in the US, I learned an expression, you should let it go. See, I think it's something very important. Sometimes you are attached to things and say, no, you have to let it go. I thought that was wonderful. Every time I had my roommate there, she would say, Beatriz, learn this, let it go. And it's important for us to do other things.
But that's a very important thing, which based on the culture, you find many of the time people won't speak up. They won't speak up, and that's within, and that's a big hindrance. And especially I find even equal with the boys and girls too. I'm not talking only of women, but this issue is definitely there because we often think of what the society would say. Many a time, what will others say? What will the society say? Is the first thing which comes in. So that's one which actually hinders, and we find then that lets them down. And we are so much in the society where we think if I don't come to this expectation, I don't think I fit in. So I think there are a lot of things which are there, but I think we should find a way of speaking up, as you said. And here, basically, I find our girls to be very submissive, very submissive. They won't speak up. We tell them also, then they look at the coach what they should speak up. They won't speak up. They will come up. I think that's very important. If people start talking like Giovanna, what she does, I think that's something where they understand and then they do something for themselves. It is not for somebody else that they're doing it. That's something great. So I think it's a great thing, as you said, let go. That's a very important lesson too. That's great. So thank you so much, Obrigado, right? Obrigado. So on behalf of the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, Government of India, Khelo India, Obrigado. I'm sorry. I don't know how I pronounce that. Well,
Very good, very good. Excellent.
Obrigado.
That's very good.
Because it's been hats off to a young, dynamic, I'd say role model, ambassador of sport, ambassador whom all the athletes look forward, because we had Lindsay and we have Giovanna. You are the ones who are great. And thank you so much. And there's the people who are putting in Hindi too. Whatever words you have said, there are participants are translating in Hindi and putting in the chat box. So thank you, Obrigado, Giovanna. Hats off to you. And it's such a wonderful, memorable, session, which I think. So you remember, words will always remain with us. It's here and it's imbibed in our memory area. Even at this age, if you can, you can imagine how powerful your session was. It was an awesome session. So obrigado once again. Obrigado to Beatrice, because you introduced us to this great speaker. It was you who brought us, and you really cared for us. That shows the love and affection you have for us, and that's why we find it such a close network. Thank you, obrigado. And Darlin, I always believe, I say she's the lightest, because without light, it's always dark, which some of you may not realize, but Darlin has made a huge difference, because you make the point of making us feel that this program grows stronger. And your contribution has been so significant that each day, even I am learning besides of PE teachers. Each day I'm learning something new, is what I'd like to mention that. And thank you so much for putting in your points, giving your insights. And your insights always, I tell you, they are quotes. So it's important, Darlin, whatever you speak, put that in quotes. It should come as Darlin's quotes. It's important because, yes, I'm not joking. I'm telling you truly, your words, you don't realize certain things you said. As I said last time, access and opportunities coming together. So a lot of words of yours should go as a quote. It's important you please put it down and jot it down, because they really matter. And that should be Darlin's quotes. I don't think anybody. So I'm taking the quote from you. So I'll be mentioning your name. Thank you so much, my dear Darlin.
I learned much too.
I'd like to thank Rosa, our president. It's a long time since we've seen our president of Rosa, who's the president of passed away. I need to thank Madam so much. It's because of her that we can have it a truly international platform. I'd like to thank Dr. Yuri, who's the president of XP. He also tries his level best to be a part of this program. I'd like to thank Dr. G. Kishore, who's the principal, a great administrator and leader with a lot of responsibilities. And I need thanks. Thank you so much, sir, for all that, for the support system that you've given us. I'd like to thank Dr. Sanjeev Patil, who is the co-host, who's been working day and night very hard for this program. I'd like to thank Mr. Pranesh and Harihar for the technical assistance and the work that Pranesh has been doing. They all work behind the screen, and they work throughout the day, because a lot of communication and entire work is being done by them. I'd like to thank my dear PE teachers, because I know you've been putting things on the chat box. You're true leaders, ambassadors. You are the heart and soul of this program, and I know you all are doing a great job. And whatever we learned, we are going to implement and start practicing it. This is what we do. So मैं आप सबका धन्यवाद देना चाहती हूँ कि आप सबने बहुत एक्टिवली से पार्टिसिपेट किया है. आप लोगों ने चैट बॉक्स में काफी कुछ डाला है, तो हमें भी अच्छा लग रहा है. आप लोगों को कुछ भी क्वेश्चंस है, आप कुछ प्रश्न पूछना, आप उसके बारे में पूछ जानकारी ले सकते हैं. So thank you so much, my dear PE teachers and community coaches, because we have teachers coming from across the country. And India, we have different states, different regions. We are from across the country. That's something new, because, and I need to thank the administrators, the ministry who has actually given us this particular opportunity. So once again, and we have a feedback, please. Ganesh for the feedback. So Giona, this is a feedback I think you saw last time too. So how good a session is, and so it was an excellent session, and I think sure you're going to get more. We'll also recommend your name so that in certain opportunity we'd like to have you on board when there are important occasions. So you found it was wonderful overall evaluation. You can see the feedback. Okay, fine, because we'll also give you the feedback. Pranish, maybe you can send to the participants also. Is it wonderful? It's overall, it's great. Very great. We can't hear you. Anyway, once again, obrigado, dhanyavad, thank you, shukriya, and namaste.